again, since we're going to be a little squeezed on time, our next guest has got a little compressed schedule, but we are really pleased to have him. I will not do a big, long introduction. The CEO of ICANN, Fadi Chehadé, is not a stranger to us. He was with us at a major event last year, and he was brilliant. People who had not heard him before walked away shaking their heads saying, wow, I had no idea how good he was. It's great to have him. Obviously, he's in the center of a lot of discussion. I'll simply say that his background, I could rattle off the companies he's been CEO involved in, but he has extensive private sector experience. When he came to ICANN, there was an immediate sense from people in the organization and those who deal with it of greater energy, vitality, and focus. We're really glad to have him here and have him as head of ICANN.
Good morning. Thank you, Ed. That's all I can say. Thank you, CCIA, for leadership, for clarity. Really appreciate it very, very much, all the time with your leadership. Thank you, Ed. And thank you. It's difficult to follow Assistant Secretary Strickling because he has such a breadth of knowledge and responsibility, and I sometimes also forget when I deal with him on issues of the internet how much is on his plate, and I thank him. I want to start, frankly, by thanking NTIA for their courage and for their fortitude and for doing the most American thing, which is to follow through on your commitments, to stand by what you believe in, to say we believe in the multi-stakeholder model and we will do the right thing to support it globally. Very few people remember that when Larry and his team stood up and did what they committed to do since the founding of ICANN. And of course, a lot of people are tying it to one event or another revelation. The reality is this was in the planning. It was a progressive set of steps. ICANN and NTIA's relationship went through a growth phase over 15 years that led us to the point where it was very clear that ICANN was now ready to actually take on the responsibilities it has ahead of it. So thank you, NTIA, and thank you, Larry, personally for this. And I'm not the only one to thank him. Every major organization in this country that cares about business, about success, about the economic growth enabled by the internet has supported this decision. Even the Motion Pictures Association supported this decision with all their concerns with IP, because it's the right decision. You did, and your organization did. We thank you for that. Cisco did, Microsoft did, AT&T did, Verizon did, and the list is long and distinguished. All these companies and organizations have quickly come out with substantive support for that decision. We should not forget that. This is important. Now, here's my assurances to everyone. First, there is no rush. We have time to do this properly. All we did is start a process. That process will take, in my opinion, a good chunk of time, at least the 2 years ahead of us that we need to get to the right decision. So we should not rush this. There is absolutely no deadline, neither by Larry or by ICANN or by our community. I think rushing this is the wrong thing to do and the wrong message to send. We need to do this and do it within the framework of assurances that NTIA has announced as part of that transition. We do not want this to go to some new institution necessarily. My sense is a good, solid audit mechanism with a good set of redress mechanisms overseen by people from across the community will probably do the job. And people also forget that our work at ICANN, the work that today NTIA oversees, is actually also overseen by the people who give us the policies. If you haven't attended a quarterly service level review with a bunch of engineers at the IETF, that could be an experience you should join me at once in a while. Because you get a bunch of engineers checking every little detail in their agreement, because they have an agreement with me to perform my function. They provide quite a bit of accountability, and everything they do is public, is published, is transparent. So there is many mechanisms already in place. Few people know that. Before we rush to say, let's get the UN to look over ICANN, what we need to do is to look at what's there and see what it's lacking, strengthen it, and do it well to the satisfaction of everyone in an open and transparent way. So, neither ICANN is rushing to the UN, and it won't. We are precisely planning everything so that we remain a multi-stakeholder organization. And in fact, if we come back to Larry with anything that resembles a non-multi-stakeholder organization, or an organization or a mechanism even, controlled by governments or an intergovernmental organization like the ITU, it is DOA, dead on arrival. And frankly, I don't even need to take it to Larry, because I won't take it to Larry. I'm an entrepreneur. I raised $100 million in this country building businesses that were acquired by big American companies like IBM. My children are in high tech. I'm not about, neither personally or my board of 16 diverse members, going to hand this to anybody. So I don't know where the concerns are. We are clear. This is going to remain a multi-stakeholder rooted organization where private sector, governments, within their stake, within their mandate, as well as civil society and users and technologists, engineers. You think my chairman, Dr. Crocker, is going to give away the internet? He invented the RFC system. Or Vint Cerf, or all these guys sitting, watching how we do this. I don't know, the hysteria is so, frankly, ill-informed. I spent over an hour yesterday with Speaker Gingrich. Frankly, to my delight, I had never met Speaker Gingrich, who wanted to take the time to understand what is it we're doing. And I think if we do more of that on the Hill, if we spend more time with good people that really want the internet to remain free and rooted in the multi-stakeholder model, with private sector having a very important role in its development, then I think we will be okay. But this will take time and will take all of your help. All of us need to participate in this dialogue. The second point I want to make is the conflation of internet governance with ICANN. ICANN is but a small piece of internet governance. Internet governance is a vast issue. And the mistake we're all doing, and I'm very concerned about this, is all the focus has gone to ICANN, when in fact the focus should go to the much broader issues of internet governance. We all went to the Wicket, or watched the Wicket, in December of 2012. What happened at the Wicket? It's very important, because that's going to happen again in Busan this year at the next ITU meeting. What happened at the Wicket is that people came, and Hamadoun Touré, the Secretary General, stood up and said, do you know the names and number stuff that ICANN does? We'll leave it to ICANN. ICANN is doing a very good job at that. He took it off the table at the beginning of the meeting. And then what did they do, the whole meeting? Is find holes to get into internet governance in every possible other area. And the one they picked, which no one can argue with, is spam. How about spam? We need to regulate spam. It's a good idea. And what did we do? What did the people who want the internet to remain free of interference from more governmental intrusion do? We said, not here. No. This is not a multi-stakeholder forum. This is intergovernmental, not here. And they said, okay, not here. Where do you want us to go solve this issue? And what did we say? What was our answer? Not here. We had no answer. We're going to show up in Busan and do this again. And this time, I'm not so sure we're going to prevail. Because even Singapore voted with Russia in the Wicket. We cannot keep telling the middle countries All of our focus is on China and Russia. How about the 150 guys in the middle? What about them? How about we give them some answers? Where do we go solve spam? Where do we go solve cyberbullying? Where do we address issues of security? Where do we address content? How about taxation? And the questions will come thick and heavy on us. And if we stand up again and say, not here, we're not going to get anywhere. Actually, I think we're going to get clobbered in Busan. This is the call to action. All of us and this town woke up thanks to the decision of NTIA. And frankly, despite the fact it's been difficult, and Larry and I have been in town educating, talking, and it's not an easy time, but I think it's been superb because everyone is now focused on the issue. Thank you. And we have a few months till Busan. But let's not waste our time thinking, who's going to mind the shop at ICANN? We'll take care of that. We have a process. We'll take care of that. Instead, let's focus all of our attention to start thinking, how are we going to give answers to the middle countries, to Brazil, to Malaysia, to Indonesia, to Kenya, to Egypt, to these countries? What are we going to tell them in Busan that we have done to address internet governance on a global level? And if we don't have the answers, then that would make all the wildest accusations this week to NTIA of putting the internet in play for governments that do not have the same values we do. It will make these fears actually come true. So please, let's invest our companies, let's invest our stakeholders in thinking about the bigger picture. Where's internet governance going? How do we make sure in the months, precious months we have left, that we have a position with like-minded companies, like-minded countries, like-minded leaders, with principles of an open internet where commerce can thrive and where ideas can thrive and where we continue the great success of the internet for the world. And in the meantime, in case your constituents ask you, I want to give you my assurance once again. I will make sure that that transition process goes smoothly, that we don't rush it, that it does not fall into government hands, that we come back with a proposal that meets the criteria that NTIA said, and secondly, and very importantly, and I will say that at the hearing tomorrow, we are going to strengthen ICANN's own accountability in every way possible. I will start a second, completely parallel and intense public consultation effort immediately that says, how do we make ICANN itself become even more accountable than it is, more transparent than it is, so we are beyond reproach as best we can. That's my commitment. Jamie, can I take a couple of questions? We have a couple. Ed, if you'd like to open the floor, please.
James Waterworth from CCIA's Brussels office. Thank you very much, Fadi. Two questions which were on the narrower part of the reforms which relate to ICANN. How do you envisage getting as much of the world as possible on board? Obviously, Brazil's an important step in that, but some have completely different political traditions, so I'd be interested in your views on how to get the maximum number on board. And then on the wider part of internet governance that you rightly underlined, if the ITU is not the place, and I agree it's not the place, what ideas might you have about where might be those places? Obviously, we have the IGF, but do you have any other ideas? Thanks.
So on your first question was about how we get the whole world on board with the ICANN transition. Make it open, transparent from the beginning, ensure that there is very clear processes that we follow every step of the way. I think we're getting very good feedback from many capitals right now about the decision of NTIA, very positive feedback. Get companies and private sector involved, so we don't end up with just the governments interested. So I invited Telefonica, I invited many companies to start getting engaged in the process early and being part of it. I think I'm actually quite comfortable that we'll get there. I'm not worried about that. ICANN knows how to engage. We've announced over 20 global meetings to reach out to the world on the transition. I mean, this will cost us millions of dollars next year, but we're going around the world at every meeting of ICANN, every meeting of the IETF, every meeting of the regional internet registries, ISOC. We're going all over the world to listen and engage people into the process. Frankly, it's also an opportunity to show people how the multi-stakeholder model works. So it's a positive opportunity. I don't view it just as a burden. I view it as a positive engagement opportunity. Your second question is a little more complex. And I must say that I do not have an answer exactly how this will be solved. So I invited you all to participate in shaping the answer. And I think it would be disingenuous of me to say, I know exactly how we're going to solve global internet governance. I think we need to participate in that dialogue. And I'll tell you the story you may have heard me say before, James. When I went to see President Rousseff in Brazil, she had just done her speech at the UN in which she was relatively upset about the issue of surveillance. And she was quite upset, personally. My question to her when I met her was very simple. You're upset. I appreciate that. How do you plan to solve this issue? So I moved her into the solution mode. I know you're upset, and I know you're going to voice that you're upset. How do you plan to solve this issue? For your people, for yourself, for the world? Do you want to take leadership, frankly, or do you want to just be screaming about it? And she said, I don't know. I don't know how to solve this issue. I said, well, you went to the UN. Why did you go to the UN? She said, well, where else do you want me to go? See, this is again where do I go? So I told her, I said, Madam President, you can take the opportunity now to create this where do I go? And she said, how do I do that? I said, why don't you call for a global multi-stakeholder meeting? Invite private sector, civil society, governments to come and have a discussion. Let's have a debate. Let's figure out how we advance this roadmap. And she said, I'm ready, literally. And it was, her staff, frankly, was quite stunned because on the spot she said, I'm going to do this. When do you want to do it, Mr. Chehadé? And I said, I wasn't prepared for this. I said, how about we do it in May? And she said, no, May is too close to the football Mundial thing. I said, fine, so let's do it in April. This is literally how it happened. And she called for a global meeting on April 23rd. And then she asked me to co-chair it with her Minister of Science and Technology. So the debate, at least we've energized the debate. We created a platform where people could come. She called it the multi-stakeholder meeting for the future of internet governance. That night she tweeted 3 times, I support the multi-stakeholder model. I mean, this is what we need to do. We need to go to these middle countries that are searching for a democratic open internet, just like us, and need a way out of there's no other place but the ITU. Let's give them a way out, and hopefully in Brazil we will succeed in starting to answer your question.
Let me take advantage of my ability to ask a question, and a little difficult one, perhaps.
Please.
I think what's going on with ICANN and internet government had been going on anyway, but the surveillance issue has landed smack dab in the middle of this and has had a huge impact. We have long urged the U.S. government to be a leader on internet freedom and
Yes.
openness issues. And we've also long warned that some policies by parts of the U.S. government undermine our credibility in the international arena. And I guess the question is, to what extent if there is a substantial reform of U.S. government surveillance policies, will there be sufficiently enhanced credibility that the U.S. can play the kind of important leadership role, which frankly the world needs on this issue? And how much, I guess, I don't expect a specific answer, but how much reform is enough to get that credibility back is, I think, what we all need to be asking.
We've lost trust in friends and systems before all of us at some point in our lives. The one thing we all know is it takes time to regain it. It doesn't happen quickly. It just takes time. And it takes a lot of steps, positive steps, to regain trust. It's much easier to lose trust than to win it. The problem is we don't have a lot of time. We have little time. And the world is no longer just sitting and waiting. So I do think, and I believe this as an American, that we have a great story to tell. We just have to have the courage to go tell it. Yes, some people may disagree with some policies. Fine. But we have so much else to talk about that's good. We've given the internet to the world. It's enabled trillions of dollars of value to the world. It is freeing people. It is freeing companies from their geographical limitations. It's allowing small business to grow. I mean, the story is long, and what we need to do is to tell the good story. And we have a great story. Not enough of us are doing it. And we can't just count on the government. We, the private sector, the people who believe in the system, must come out and speak. We need to do more of that. And in fact, you say this, and you're touching on something that I'm thinking quite a bit about these days. We do not have a platform where we and other good people around the world can speak from. We need that platform, and it's not ICANN, certainly. I mean, we need a big platform where people could stand up and speak for common principles of what the internet we believe in and the way we want it governed. That's missing today. And yes, the US would have been the natural platform for this, has been the natural platform for this. Now we need to broaden this platform. And I salute the Brazilians when they decided who will be the 12 countries with them on that multi-stakeholder meeting. They picked the 12 countries. 10 of them are what I call middle countries, plus Brazil, South Africa, etc. But then the 12th country they picked is the United States. And that tells you something about where we still have that pedestal. And we should use it. And yes, as you said, some trust was lost. But believe me, if we ponder too much on that, we lose the opportunity to tell the real story. And I hope we do. And I'm a voice, but I know I need yours, and I need everybody's here.
A wonderfully articulate voice. Thank you. Yes.
Hi, Joe McKnight, Washington Internet Daily. I'm just curious, following up on an earlier question, what impact do you think the .com Act might have on the IANA the transition, and whether or not you expect it to be passed in the House Internet Subcommittee in tomorrow's markup?
I am very naive about the ways of Washington, so you're asking the wrong person. I had never been to a hearing before I showed up the other day, so I'm learning how your town works. I'm not familiar with the process, nor can I comment of how it will pass or when it will pass. Frankly, I'm not. I think conceptually, I will support this. We need to be very transparent with this process. It's very important. This is the heart of the confidence we need to build with everyone. We need to be very transparent, very open, over-communicate what is going on, what is happening. Yesterday, Speaker Gingrich even said, why don't these committees appoint full-time staffers to be part of the process? Let them watch it. Of course, they'll get a free ticket around the world because our process will be all over the world, but you know what? May not be such a bad thing for a couple of young staffers. But this is open. This is transparent. We're not doing anything in hiding here. And what needs to happen is for us to keep sending the message to the world that the United States, its people and its government and its private sector trusts the multi-stakeholder model. It doesn't mean we don't verify. We have to verify. But we must trust it. If we show our ambivalence in the belief that private sector, businesses and governments and civil society can come together and produce good consensus decisions, that's puncturing the whole picture for the big story, where we're telling people, hey, let's go solve these other issues using a multi-stakeholder model. If we don't trust it here, after 15 years of ICANN never slipping, we've never made a mistake. The internet has never lost a nanosecond of its unique registries under ICANN's watch. If we don't show trust in that, and we try to verify it with the wrong mechanisms, I think that's a sad way to start telling the world why we believe in that model. Thank you.